Onto other stories now. In his update on the country's response to the COVID-19 outbreak yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a risk-adjusted strategy for the resumption of economic activity. In a week's time, some social and economic activities will resume, albeit at limited levels. Tebogo Khaas is the president of the South Africa SMME Forum, and he joins us now to tell us how small and medium enterprises will handle this going forward. A very good morning to you, and thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Khaas.
Good morning, Desiree. Thanks for having me.
Painful as it may be that the operations of a huge number of your constituency have been impacted, are you in any way reassured by the President's strategy and responses to the COVID-19 outbreak?
Well, I think the President has been doing a fantastic job so far, and his cabinet, or rather most of his cabinet members also. And we do appreciate the fact that it is not an easy situation that he's been, or an easy cut he's been dealt, but he's doing the best out of what he has to contend with, given the fact that nobody had anticipated what we are now faced with.
Do we have any measurable evidence of how small businesses have been affected?
At this stage, I think all evidence is just anecdotal because it is too early to assess the real impact this lockdown has had on small businesses. Suffice to say, though, that we are mindful of the fact that many small businesses will never come out of this unscathed, and will be very lucky if we don't see at least 30% of SMEs being stopping to cease. I mean, ceasing to operate after the lockdown has been lifted completely, because most of them are impacted in such a manner that not only can they not afford to pay the salaries of their employees, but also the running costs. We are alive to the fact that some landlords and other creditors would have come to the party and offered some mitigating concessions, but most of that would not be sufficient to actually mitigate the actual hardship that they endure. You would also be alive to the fact that the UIF, for instance, has agreed to provide some relief for salaries, but not all SMEs will be qualifying. Remember, only those SMEs who've been compliant to the UIF benefits can qualify. But then you also would find that there are also informal small businesses who have got no relationship or a formal relationship with the Department of Labor. Those are going to be hugely impacted. And even those who currently are compliant with the Department of Labor, insofar as the UIF contributions are concerned, most of them you will find that they still haven't had any response from the UIF itself. I mean, we've been inundated with calls or inquiries about SMEs who are frustrated at the lack of feedback from the Unemployment Insurance Fund, for example.
We'll try and follow that up, but do we know if the relief programs announced by Minister Kumbutso Ntshavheni of small business are being implemented, and if they're working at all?
I missed the last part of your question, but I think I gain a sense that you are asking about the Minister of Small Businesses, the relief intervention that she had announced. You know, I had to say this because I don't want to be a party pooper, having said earlier that the President is doing a fantastic job. From where I'm sitting, I think the Minister of Small Business is letting the President down, in a sense that all we've been seeing is obfuscations from her department, shining SMEs from pillar to post. Yesterday I received a note from one of SMUs, also our member, who was showing me that after having registered on the Department of Small Business website as indicated, she was referred, or they were referred to numerous other websites to go into the same process that they went through. It is rather cumbersome, and some of the requirements are actually repetitive And we really don't understand who ought to be leading this. We would have wished or thought that the Department of Small Business would take the lead and centralize all inquiries to do with relief funds for SMEs. But sadly, that is not the case. And there has been delays. I'm still to meet any SME who's had any relief from the Department of Small Business directly itself. Yes, we've had feedback that the banks, for example, have been able to assist SMEs with regards to relief fund. I think the maximum amount of 750 rands for employees, which will go a long way towards mitigating some of the living expenses. But it is nothing. I mean, if you know, today for 750, there's not much of a basket of goods and services that you can get.
So what needs to change going forward?
What needs to change? Unfortunately, we all have to fix the plane while it is airborne. But there's a lot that needs to. What this is the lessons to be drawn out of this crisis is that we need to find better collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. It doesn't make sense that soon after the crisis erupted, we saw government clutching on, scurrying around trying to find solutions when solution could have long been put in place. For example, we need to change the model in terms of more collaboration between government, SME formations, and SMEs themselves, and also better coordination between government departments itself. It doesn't make sense that SARS, Department of Labor, Small Business, DTI don't seem to be working together seamlessly. We believe that that is something that needs to be looked into, and there are opportunities that will also arise out of, post this crisis, and we hope that our government would not let such a good crisis go to waste, because the opportunities that are inherent out of this can only improve our economy and ensure that small business development is actually taken very much more seriously, practically, going forward. But we can only hope, because at the end of the day, it is government departments, ministries who are responsible to ensuring that there's policy formulation to ensure that it aligns to the changed world that we find ourselves in going forward.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Tebogo Khaas is the president of the South African SMME Forum. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break.